John Hook's Newsmaker starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker. If you don't already have red light or speed cameras in your city, brace for impact. Tempe just turned them on this month, and in the first 2 weeks, they captured more than 2,000 violations. Goodyear, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, Mesa, and Chandler already have traffic cameras, but Phoenix is expected to turn them on this fall. On the flip side, 9 states have outlawed them, saying that they are being used not for safety, but to generate revenue. Later in the program, we will hear from that perspective from Shawn Dow, who has led efforts here in Arizona to ban speed and photo cameras. But we begin with Tom Haubold, who is the photo enforcement supervisor for the city of Tempe. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, full disclosure, I am not a fan. I've said this before. However, I think a case can be made for red light cameras because people really get killed by running red lights in intersections and plowing into somebody, T-boning somebody. But let you make the case. In the spirit of fairness, regardless of how I feel about it personally, I wanted to get that out front so people can evaluate whether I'm being fair. Give me the best case for why the cameras came back in Tempe, because you did away with them in 2010.
We did.
And you brought them back again. Tell me why.
So the city has adopted a Vision Zero policy, and the goal of Vision Zero is to reduce fatal collisions so that we have no more fatal collisions in the city of Tempe. That's the ultimate goal. The other goal for Vision Zero is that we want to reduce the severity of our crashes that we do have for the ones that are not fatal. I worked for 22 years as a fatal investigator for City of Tempe, and it would be really nice never to have to go give another death notification to a family because somebody ran a red light and now their loved one's not coming home.
Let's talk a little bit about what you've observed in the past month. My data is old. Mine runs June 6th through the 20th, first 2 weeks the cameras were on. And as I mentioned, there were 2,283 violations. Mobile speed got the most of them, actually, more than half. Those are the mobile speed vans that you move around every 2 weeks.
Well, we don't use the mobile speed vans. We actually use a little tower.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm thinking other jurisdictions.
Right.
Is there a nexus between speed and fatal crashes?
Sure. The faster you're going in an automobile, you're taking all that kinetic energy into an accident. So the faster you're going, the more damage you're going to do to that other vehicle or whatever you hit. And that energy all has to transfer someplace in that crash. And usually it's, a big part of that energy transfers to the people. You get too much of that energy transfer and you can't survive that. So speed, if we can slow people down, we lessen the severity of injuries that we're having on our city streets. So the mobile cameras play just as big of a role as our red light cameras do.
Oh, you do? You think that they're equal in their impact on safety?
Yes, they can be, yes.
If you had to choose one or the other, which would be the most important? Do you think the red light cameras would win the day?
I think so. I think probably the red light camera would be, that's where you notice it more. Like if you've ever driven up when we've had a real bad accident at the intersection, that also impacts more people. Because people are trying to get through those intersections to get home, and you have an accident, nobody can get anywhere.
In Tempe, tell me how the rules go. Do you let drivers know back 1,000 feet or so that they're entering an area that is being patrolled by, well, patrolled isn't the right word, being monitored by cameras, right. Either speed or red light?
Right, so there's 2 signs before all that happens. So like when we put our mobile cameras out, you'll see the actual tower. Then 300 feet before that, there'll be a warning sign. And then between that and the next sign, there'll be a speed limit sign. So we do have 2 signs. They're usually roughly 300 or more feet away from each other. So you're probably close to maybe 1,000 feet before you get to the actual camera that you're starting to see the signs.
I got to give you credit on that one, because that used to be one of my big objections. I thought, for the spirit of fair play, give people a chance to correct their behavior. So if you're notifying people ahead of the camera, I think that's, I think that's fair.
Right. We're trying to be fair with you, right? But I can tell you, like, we had a mobile camera up on Broadway Road. It was the first time we put it up there, and I get off the 101 and I'm coming westbound on Broadway Road, and I thought, oh yeah, there's a mobile camera here. And I was like, okay, there's the camera. Then after I passed, I was like, I didn't see the signs. So I had to turn around and go right back at it and then go, okay, yep, there's the first sign, there's the speed limit sign,
okay,
there's the second sign, and here's the camera.
Okay.
So,
okay, let's talk about what you cite. One of the big ones is red light violations, but a lot of this is turning left on red, right?
Correct.
So
that's also a red light violation.
Sure. Okay, so on the left on red, the rule again is you can't breach that line that's basically in line with the curb.
Correct.
As you're entering the intersection. If you pierce that during a red light, you're going to get cited, right?
Correct. So as long as you pass that line before the light turns red, then you're okay. You're already in the intersection.
Okay, so if you go into the intersection and then the light turns red, you have a chance for traffic to clear, and then when it's safe, you can turn left. That's
Correct.
okay. You're in the field of play, you're not going to get cited.
Exactly. You're fair game there to do that.
Do you cite people for rolling through a red on a right turn?
No, we do not monitor our right turn lanes.
Okay, that's good news for me. Okay, you're aware, I've got to bring this up because we've talked about safety. Now, there was a study done here in Arizona. This was the Association for Advancement of Automotive Medicine. The health agencies got involved in this. Will Humble, who was the head of the health department, he was involved in this. They looked at this and they came to the conclusion our data did not show any statistical increase or decrease in total number of motor vehicle crashes with speed cameras.
And that's surprising. I would think that, just myself as a driver, if I know there's a photo enforcement at this intersection, I'm not going to try to beat that yellow light. So that's going to keep me stopping before I go through there on the red, which should, if that does it to the most of the other drivers, then I would think that our accidents at intersections should decrease.
Now the fines are $250, right?
Correct.
Based on that first 2 weeks, we did some math, and which is always dangerous for news people, but we did some math live on the air when we first heard the number that 2,283 citations potentially were at play. Those were the violations. Times 250, I think we got to $500,000 in 2 weeks.
Right. But now we don't get all that money.
Right.
The city of Tempe doesn't get that money. So it's not like we're getting all this cash now and we can start doing all these other programs and stuff.
Exactly right, because you've got a vendor that runs the program. You've got to pay them, and then you have a lot of people who don't pay the ticket at all.
Correct. Yeah, we have to pay for the rental of the cameras. That we don't own those. They're all owned and serviced and maintained by the vendor. So we have to pay for that every month.
Do you worry that that's a steep fine for somebody living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, that it's really punishing?
It can be, but like I was a motor officer and I used to go out there and stop, individuals for speeding as a motor officer, and the same thing. The only I guess difference is I had discretion whether I was going to write that ticket or not, and I could talk to the I could talk to the person and kind of decide what is the best way to educate this person.
Yeah.
So sometimes that meant giving them a ticket, and sometimes it didn't. It just meant that maybe we should discuss.
Tom, you've got officers with Tempe PD that look these violations over and make the call, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
How many officers do you tie up doing that?
So what we have is they're not actually police officers; they're community responders. They go out and help the officers out on the road, taking wrecks and different types of lower priority calls. So we've trained 5 of those people that were specifically hired for the photo enforcement detail.
Let me get back to this situation back in, I think it was, Tempe previously had red light cameras in the 90s, in the late 90s, and the city council voted to shut them off in 2011. One of those votes to shut them off is the current mayor, Corey Wood. Corey Wood was, he was one of the guys who said, I think we should end this. And now he is a real advocate for these cameras. What changed? I mean, we'd been there, done that, cut the cord. What changed?
There was a lot of issues that we had with that current vendor at that time. It got to the point where the program, basically, we weren't seeing a benefit to the city to continue that program. So I think that's why the city said, all right, we're done with this. We can't recognize the value in this program, so we're going to get rid of it.
Tom, you're bullish on this. You think it makes a difference. As a former motor officer, I mean, you've been on both sides of it. You think this makes the road safer in Tempe?
I really believe that it can, yes. And that's, I'm really interested to see 6 to 9 to 12 months down the road, are we seeing what we are hoping to see? If you don't, would you pull the plug again? Well, I don't have that authority to do that, right, but I will definitely voice it up the chain to say, hey, this is what the data is showing, and this is what it's not showing. So, Tom Haubold, I appreciate your time, Tom. When we come back, we're going to talk to Shawn Dow, who has spearheaded efforts to shut down red light and speed cameras in Arizona. The other side, coming up next on Newsmaker. Welcome back on Newsmaker. In the first part of the program, we heard from Tom Haubold, photo enforcement supervisor for the city of Tempe, on speed and red light cameras. Now the opposite view, equal time, Shawn Dow, who has spent a good portion of his life trying to beat back red light and speed cameras. Great to see you, Shawn. How are you doing?
I'm having fun, John. Good to be with you again.
Okay. I don't know if the drivers in Tempe are. The new data that Mr. Haubold shared with us in the first part of the program, 3,802 total violations in less than a month. At $250 a clip, we're getting up near $1 million in less than 1 month.
That's pretty standard across the spectrum, and there's another 7,000 tickets that they are still processing on top of those 3,000. So your numbers are just a drop in the bucket of what they'll actually be pulling in. We have towns in Arizona here like Paradise Valley. They've got 12,000 residents. They're issuing 33,000 tickets.
A year.
This is all about the money.
Okay, you think it is. The efforts to beat this back, you've been down at the legislature working on this. They had a bill this year that looked like it might pass statewide ban on photo enforcement. Where does that stand now, and where is the reluctance? Why can't you get that over the finish line?
Because 11% of every ticket goes directly into the campaign coffers of our politicians. When they wrote this law, they made it so that they get a cut. This money funds our politicians' campaign coffers. We're the only state in the country that does it. We've been able to ban these cameras in 19 states and rip them out of over 700 cities. The reason that in Arizona it's the hardest is because the politicians get a direct cut of every ticket.
Would that not be a conflict of interest?
Well, it absolutely is, and this is why the politicians have been clamoring to pass this bill. And for the second year in a row, the governor has vetoed the ban on photo radar in Arizona.
Okay, this has been a contentious issue going back decades. And by the way, for people who moved here and don't remember, we had a man killed, Doug Giorgiani. He was 51 years old. He was killed by a guy who shot into his mobile van, I believe on the 101 in Scottsdale. We had a life taken over this. That's how contentious this issue has been. Do you think that people are more opposed to this than they are in favor?
Every year we grow stronger and stronger. Every time Tempe or Scottsdale issues one of these tickets, they create another angry voter. And so we get stronger and stronger. We're replacing politicians who side with the photo radar company. And next year, we're only 5 months away from having this bill filed again.
Shawn, the proponents keep saying that it's about safety. Why don't you buy that?
Because I look at Glendale, when the police chief there issued the real accident numbers, they saw a 300% increase in accidents in every category, sometimes 400%. It is a bogus claim. They are fake and they are lying to you when they say this is about safety. Seriously, John, what genius convinced anybody that a bright flash in your face at the most dangerous part of the road, the intersection, was going to make things safer?
Let me share with you what's going on in Baltimore. Baltimore just paid over $12 million to an out-of-state vendor to operate cameras on I-83. The city only netted $1.5 million after they were told they'd make about $20 million. So they're not collecting it. It's become a boondoggle, and there's people already calling to shut it down. Is that? We saw this in Chicago. Chicago's fighting back, but they need the money badly because they're $1 billion in the hole there.
Don't forget, over 20 politicians in the state of Illinois, went to prison over photo radar, their scam and their programs, including our own Karen Finley, the president of Redflex, the photo radar company, was sentenced to 10 years in prison for fraud. This is a scam. They lied to you when they told you it was about safety. We have study after study of Department of Transportations across the country that prove that accidents increase, as well as local data showing that accidents increase. This is a scam to get your money. They're violating the law. They're they're violating Arizona law and constitutional law in order to get your money, and they're putting your life and your property at risk in order to keep that money flowing into their pocket.
Now, Shawn, one of the things, and we're just going to let it fly here. We're going to tell the truth. You have a right to face your accuser in this country. So a camera taking your picture is not an open and shut case. And so people should know this. If you get a red light ticket in the mail, you have no obligation to pay that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And 120 days later, the ticket is automatically dismissed under State Rule 4I. Hey, John, you want to know a funny story about that one? You know how we found out? You want to know how we found out that you didn't have to pay the ticket and it would automatically be dismissed after 120 days? We typed in all the executives of the photo radar company's names into the county court records to see if they had any photo radar tickets. And all of them had like 20 or 30 photo radar tickets, but they were all dismissed under Rule 4I. All of them, every single one. And so we went and we looked it up. What is Rule 4I? And it says that if you are not issued this ticket by a duly sworn officer of the court, this ticket is automatically dismissed under Rule 4I. That means a sworn peace officer or a process server has to give you that ticket. So if you just throw it in the trash, it's automatically dismissed.
Okay, so that would be your advice to people if they get one, but it can be handed over to a collection agency or a process server, right?
John, we're talking 400,000 tickets a month. There's not enough process servers in the world to serve that many people.
I thought that, but I got served.
Don't open your door for strangers.
Full
You should know
disclosure.
better than that.
Full disclosure. So you were under no obligation to pay that first go around. If a process server brings it to you, then you're kind of stuck, right?
Then you have to deal with it.
Okay.
Or like with Scottsdale, they do a large amount of motion for alternative service where they just tape it to your door because a judge has signed off saying they can do it. Scottsdale is the only city in the country that does this massive amounts of motion for alternative services.
That's where I live. That's why I got it. So there you go.
Brother.
Okay. Legal recourse. Is there any argument against this in the law to say this is not, I mean, there is such a thing as reasonable and prudent speed. So if you get a camera that blasts you on a Sunday morning when conditions are clear and there's no traffic and you're going 12 miles or 15 miles over the speed limit, you might get a picture taken, but that is still reasonable and prudent speed, is it not?
Well, that is for a police, a sworn peace officer or a judge to decide. That's not for you or I to decide what is reasonable and prudent on an open road. The absolute clear problems where other states have torn down these cameras is because they violate state laws and constitutional law. Every time you have ever driven past that camera, a background check was done on you without probable cause. These advanced license plate recognition softwares is checking to see if your license is up to date, if you have any wants or warrants. They're checking everything through this national law enforcement database on you without probable cause. This is a clear violation of our Constitution. The Fifth Amendment violations are because you're not allowed to fight this in court like you would if there was a police officer. The Sixth Amendment violations, being able to confront your accuser.
Yes, we talked about that.
Your accuser is not in court.
Shawn, do they keep this stuff on file? If you get a red light camera or a photo radar citation that you don't respond to, you never got served by the process server, is it sitting out there somewhere on your record? Can it affect your insurance? Can an officer say, hey, you've got a bunch of red light camera violations?
Well, it's more than that they're keeping it on file. They're sharing all this data with the federal government. Look at what San Diego and Denver have just done. They just turned off their cameras because they were sharing their data with ICE. So every time somebody that the federal government was looking for drove by one of the cameras, it sent an alert to the nearest police officer or the nearest ICE agent to go and detain this person.
Okay, so this is a surveillance bit too, as well.
Well, yeah, they're tracking everyone like cattle, and they're sharing this data with Department of Homeland Security. This is all proven stuff for decades now.
Shawn, do you think that there's going to be another effort or maybe a citizens' initiative to beat back photo radar and red light cameras?
I can assure you that the bill is being pre-filed by November. The ban on photo radar will be filed again, and we will push through. And I can assure you that Governor Hobbs has some opponents out there that take a very different stance on photo radar. Her largest opponent, Andy Biggs, would sign the bill to ban photo radar. So this is going to become a very contentious issue.
Can a case be made that red light cameras are more worthy than just speed cameras? That red light cameras might actually save a life? Because running into an intersection, blowing through a red light, you can kill somebody with that stuff.
97% of all red light camera tickets are 1/10 of a second after the light turns red. And no sworn peace officer in the country would have written you that ticket. They are using this as a scam to get money from you.
I think we're going to leave it there. We've heard both sides tonight, so I appreciate it. Shawn Dow, good to see you.
You too, brother. Have fun.
Okay, we'll see you soon. We're back in a moment on Newsmaker.